all, congratulations on the film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You must have been thrilled with the reception at Sundance, were you?
Thrilled and surprised, knocked out. Yeah, a film full of unknown Dublin kids that people can't really understand in America, and yet they enjoyed it.
Oh, it's terrific. It's obviously a very personal film for you because it's set in the 80s and you went to Sing Street yourself. Was it difficult to find the right actor to play Connor in that sense?
Yeah, it was. Well, the funny thing about casting is, like, in Ferdia's case, and I've heard this story before, he was the first kid in the door. Wow. And then you try and get somebody to better him and you realise we can't, but we tried. And then the funny thing is that it was the very, very first person that came through the door. He was just, Ferdia had a great facility to, every time he got called back to an audition, he got better. And stuff that I would say to him at audition 2, he would take into account, and 2 weeks later he would bring to the next audition. That went on, and it made me think, here's a kid who can track a character through not just be good playing the guitar for a moment, which is necessary for this role, but also he needs to track a story that happens to his family and his girlfriend and his brother and the characters in his life. There's a few things change in this film, and he just showed that ability to synthesize that information and to display it in his acting. So it's funny, he's the first kid in the door, and then like 2 months later, it was like, you've got the part. And funny journey to go on.
All of the kids are terrific in the film. They really are. Obviously they were born in the 80s. Did you give them homework? Did they kind of?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, yeah. I didn't want. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to kind of figure out what I should show them, because everything is there. It's like nowadays, every decade is documented in. And anyway, they kind of there's an openness to kids nowadays to the 80s anyway, because it's, for many kids, it's the period that their parents grew up in. So they're interested to know what their parents were listening to or wearing or reading or what news stories were going on. So there's already an openness, it's not like it's not like you're talking about the 40s or 50s to kids. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard of Duran Duran or The Jam. And I think as a director, it's important to sort of try and put them into a time and space, but also trying to not put them in that time and space, if you know what I mean, to not make it into a historical piece, but to make it feel like pertinent and modern, and that these worries that you're going through feel real and are relatable to you as an actor. Like, do you have difficulties in school? And I remember asking the kids, what are you going through in school? And just how like it is, how many the same problems, I know obviously there's a bunch of new problems for kids in school nowadays that we didn't have with, mobile phones and the internet and all that stuff. But really just, can you relate to this story, which is hopefully more universal. I mean, the more universal, the better, in a sense. I mean, you want it to be, the minutiae of the film to be specific to the 80s and to your story, but you want the story itself to feel universal.
And timeless. It's completely timeless in that sense, isn't it? The original songs in the film are so brilliantly catchy. How did they come about?
Well, that was the point that I realized that, okay, if I'm going to make a film about a school band set in the 80s, what is that going to sound like? It has to sound authentic, but the more authentic it is, the more rubbish the songs are going to be, and I don't want that, because any film that has music in it will be only as good as its best or as its worst song. So they have to be good songs in and of themselves. They can't be aping 80s songs, which so many bands do now. You hear all these bands and they're like, oh, this band sounds like The Jam, or this band is really into like Gang of Four, and you listen to it, it's like, it just the songs aren't good, it's just the production is like the 80s, and I did not want the movie to seem like that. I wanted the songs to be as good, as any modern song was, or any 80s song was. So it took me a while to find the right person, and once I met Gary Clark, who wrote 2 fantastic songs in the film and co-wrote a bunch of songs in the film, he was just like, he made these songs sound like the 80s, but regardless of that, the songs he wrote were just catchy, intelligent, funny, hooky, and in their own right, really good songs. Not just a sort of a parody of the 80s sound or something like that.
And did the kids get a lot of kind of pre-rehearsal before shooting, or?
Yeah. No, I put the film together really carefully and slowly over time. Like, we wrote the music a year. The year I was writing the script, I was writing the music and putting the band together that would play the music in the film.
It seems to me to be kind of a distant teenage cousin of The Commitments. It's
Right.
kind of got the same, it's set in Dublin.
Well, inevitably,
It's
yeah.
got great humour and it's got terrific musicians and a great cast who really bring great songs to the film.
Yeah.
It's kind of capturing that kind of lightning in the bottle. Was that a touchstone for you, or was it just your journey kind of onwards from Once and Begin Again?
It was just my journey from after Begin Again. There was no kind of like agenda. There was no like, oh, I'll make a Dublin musical like The Commitments or cut from that cloth at all. In fact, it's very different from The Commitments in that it's an original soundtrack. That's the big thing to me. That's like, these kids are creating new music. They're not miming to old music, which is fine for The Commitments. It worked very well for that story, and it was relevant and valid. This is definitely like a story about creativity from the ground up, and the naivety of that, the innocence of that, the charm of, kids putting stuff together with paste and glue and making their own records and little self-tapes and sticking on the little bit of cardboard onto the tape and trying to get like, reel-to-reel magnetic tape sound good, and the challenges of that, of creativity in a suburban environment, where you're trying to get your porridge and your ready brek down your kid's throat, but your kid's trying to learn the guitar at the same time. It's really a story of creativity, and that's very important to me. And obviously, you make a musical in Dublin, of course you're going to get compared to The Commitments, and thankfully it's been favourable comparison so far.
Well, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Great.
And best of luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, that's great. I'm really glad you liked it.